Hello everybody, this is Whiskey River here, and welcome back to Path of Titans. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day today, and thank you for clicking on the video, for checking this channel out. If you haven't already checked it out, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, please give me a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. I do post content regularly. I'm going to be actually posting content even more regularly now, and doing live streams every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific. So please join me for that. We have a great time there where I pick a dinosaur and go through Gondua usually on the Apex Killers server, but I do play on several different servers. So we can check that out together and have some fun exploring the map and seeing what we encounter, what kind of challenges that we face, and what kind of friends we meet along the way. I always just start cruising around alone and then typically bump into random players. Some are friend and some are foe, and it's just a lot of fun. So hope to see you then on Wednesday at 10 a.m. So the DB Acrocanthosaurus, this is a dinosaur. It's a sub-apex on the Apex Killers community server. Excellent community server, by the way, if you haven't checked it out. The dinosaurs are very well balanced, and the community's overall very skilled players and very kind and respectful players for the most part. Do get the occasional trolls, but you know, that can actually be kind of fun sometimes too, because it's usually hilarious what some people try to do, and can be kind of entertaining. But I do enjoy the server, so come check it out if you haven't. The DB Acrocanthosaurus is one that I had never really played before because it was never a mod on any of the servers that I played. I think it was on a couple of them that I saw, but they were community servers where they don't really balance anything. They just put them in there as vanilla. And when that's the case, there's usually a handful that are way too overpowered, and some that are way too weak, and it's just when the balancing isn't good, it can be very frustrating, because you might have a dinosaur that you really like, but it plays like trash on that particular server, so it can make it not fun at all, and can kind of dissuade people from playing a dinosaur that could actually be really good. This dinosaur is excellent. This is a very good all-around dinosaur to pick. It's very good solo. It's one of the best solo playables, maybe even arguably the best, because it's got some buffs that help it when you're not in a group, and it has a wide range of abilities that you can choose from. The main, and then it's also great in a group as well. And on Apex Killers, you can it runs in a group of 3. And this thing is got a tool to take on pretty much anything. You can take on smaller, faster opponents, and you can take on big, giant sauropods like this. The build that I typically use is the one that you see here, where it's got the regular bite, and then it has the quick bleed bite. I forget the name of it now, I apologize, but it's the one that it applies bleed. It's the red icon you see on the screen here. And it applies bleed, and it also will slow the acceleration down of your target. So it's great for smaller, faster things because it'll help you keep up with them and run them down. And then it also has a dash or a charge ability where you can run super fast for a short period of time. And then it's got the tail attack that also does knockback, which is very handy for the tail riders. And then it has a stomp, which is great for the ankle biters and really for anything. You can do a break check on somebody and land a stomp, and it'll do a massive amount of damage to just about anything that you're fighting. And it's a great tactic to use in a lot of cases. Sometimes it can really win the fight. If you know you're about to die and something's tail riding you, you can pull that stomp off, and if you land it, sometimes it'll end the fight and get you a victory. It's also got a lot of different subspecies that you can choose from depending on the type of build you want. You could do a speed build or an armor build or a nimble build. I like the nimble build, do the one that gives you increased turning, and then you can pair that with the balanced claws that improves because you're turning even more. So I find that the turning is really helpful. The superior turning in this game is one of the best things that you can have, one of the best advantages you can get, because a lot of times when you're in brawls and scuffles, the one that can outturn the other is the one that's going to win in the end. Even if it doesn't have as high of damage, or it's not as tanky, if you can outturn somebody, you can usually get a lot of bites in and avoid their bites in return. When we're in a group of 3, we usually use a combination. The other bite, instead of that bleed bite that I was talking about, there's one called a sunder bite, and it's a charged up bite where you hold it down, charged up, and land it, and it does it stuns the enemy for a second. It applies bleed. It does a lot of damage, and I think that one also slows them down as well. But you can read the description when you check out the ability. It's pretty long. But that's a good one. I don't tend to run that one solo, just because it's not as good for the smaller, faster stuff, because it's predictable. You can hear it coming. It makes a loud noise, and you can see him charging it up and stuff like that. But it is available for certain fights, and it's great for the bigger sauropods and the bigger opponents. The other thing just used right there is the call, and it's got 2 calls. It's got one that applies to, I think, sauropods and tyrannosaurs, and debuffs them, and then it's got the one that I'm using here, which is like an armor and health regen call. It gives you a little extra armor when you pop it, and it also regenerates your health a little bit. So you can use it when you're leading into a fight like this, where it gives you a bit of armor, so you can get in and get some damage off early on in the fight without taking too much in return. And then you can also use it throughout the fight as well. I usually like to use it right away so that the cooldown starts. It's only got like about a 2-minute cooldown, so you'll get it back after it expires. There's only about 1:30 left on the cooldown timer, so it'll come back usually in the fight again. The other way to do it is to save it and use it in the fight when you need it. But sometimes the way the fights go, they can be very quick, and you might not get an opportunity to use it. Or the other problem is when you pop it mid-fight, it leaves you open to attack. So sometimes it can be kind of dangerous if you're in a fight where you don't get a situation where you can get away and get to safety where you can pop the call without getting hit. It may not be wise to do it that way, so it all just depends on how you want to use it. But this is 3 of us fighting 2 DB Gigas, and the DB Gigas are a sub-Titan class on this server, and the Acro is only a sub-Apex. So this is a very challenging fight. These guys do tons of damage, as you can see here. You saw right there, I went in and he turned. It was a bad move on my part, and he was able to turn and bite me, but I used the tail knockback to just get away right there. But I took a huge hit in doing so. The good news is I have, in about 40 seconds, I've got my heal call back, so I can heal a lot of that damage back. And we're all going in and trading a little bit, so that we're all taking a little bit of damage and also applying damage to them. But at this point, that brown one is hurt, and he's trying to run for safety. So we can probably tank him at this point, especially if we have our armor call available, which I think she does there, and it finishes him off. Yeah. So you can see that they are, you can take out sauropods with them, you can take out even sub-titans with these things. This is a solo play. This is the stomp right here. A great example of how to use that stomp. When you get those pesky ankle biters, especially those ants. Ants can be one of the most annoying things to solo players. So the stomp, I mean, really comes in handy. And it's very powerful, as you can see there. It'll make short work of those ankle biters. This is one of the more tanky sub-apex dinosaurs on this server. It's still got pretty good speed for how tanky it is, but it's going to be a little bit slower than the Saurophaganax and the Yangs, and a lot slower than the Dasp and the Aloe. So you got to play defensively sometimes, which is fine, and then other times if you can get that bleed bite off that slows your opponent down, it slows their acceleration, you can a lot of times catch up to them. This is a pretty good clip here where we got jumped by these Saurophaganax. There was 3 of them, and there was only 2 of us, and they saw us coming up from crater, so they tried to launch an ambush attack and surprise us, which they did actually. But you can see that how strong these things are. Even when you're surprised in ambush, you can fight back very successfully. There's also a number of hides on this dinosaur as well. The 2 that I use most are there's one that I'm using here where basically it gives you extra. You take much less damage upon the first hit after entering combat, and that's really good for the bigger stuff where you can control the combat timer, because you can go in, get a hit, go out, and then wait for the combat timer to expire, and then rinse and repeat that process, and you take a lot less damage. But that's not going to be as good for smaller, faster things, because they're going to be the ones controlling the combat timer, and it basically negates that ability. So you want to use, in that case, the one I run around with most is the armor hide. It gives you extra armor, and that way you can even use that against the bigger stuff too. But you could use that one most of the time, which is what I do, and then you can swap out for that other hide where you take less damage on the first hit when you know you're about to attack something that's bigger and slower than you. See, that stomp right there has a great radius as well. See how useful that can be. Somebody was asking me about tips for solo play, because they were getting swarmed by packs like this here when they were playing solo and having trouble, and that is indeed one of the most challenging things when you're playing solo, to be sure. And really, when you're playing solo, you're at a huge disadvantage in most servers. So you've just got to be really careful. Is my first piece of advice. You've got to walk around. If you want to play for survivability, and I like to try to survive as long as I can. It's kind of like my main goal. So depending on how you play, if you want to play for survivability as a solo player, I say the first step is to just be careful and avoid the hot spots. So you can see here, I'm in Wilderness Peak. I was kind of up around the rim of Crater and exploring like the Wilderness Peak area, and not running around the main, central Grand Plains or Crater or Savannah, or the places where all the players like to go. Because eventually, you are going to die, obviously. And so if your goal is survivability, then stay away from the hot spots, because there's always going to be your counter. You're gonna face your counter to something that's an unfair advantage that will kill you, whether it's a pack of things, or like 3 Yangs in this case, or 3 Aloes, or any kind of if you're going to be outnumbered, at some point in time you will encounter that. And if you go directly to the hot spot to fight, you're going to probably find that almost immediately. So if your goal is survivability, you stay away from the hotspots. Now, it's kind of a fine line. You see how I'm sort of like hovering at the very beginning of this. I was right around the edge of a crater, and then I went into Wilderness Peaks. Well, that's kind of what I do, because I want to stay somewhat close to the hotspots, because I want to find some fights, and I do want some action, and that's the whole point of playing, right, is to fight and have fun. But you don't want to just go in and die immediately either. So if you go to the most remote parts of the map, you'll never encounter anybody. But if you jump right into the hot spot, you're just going to die immediately. So you got to kind of find a happy medium. So I'll sort of like hover around the edges of the hot spots and kind of see if I can identify a good fight. Like this 1v1 with the Yang, for example. I was up there on Crater, I saw a Yang, and I thought, hey, that's a pretty fair fight. They're both sub-apexes, and I'll go 1v1 the Yang and see how that goes. Now, if I just ran straight down here without looking, there could have been 3 Yangs down here, and it'd be immediate death for me, probably. You know, if you want to challenge and you want to fight 3 Yangs and you like those overwhelming odds, then jump right on in, you know. But it's probably a, depending on your skill, 80% chance you're going to die, you lose that battle. So that's just how I do it. If I want to survive, I go ahead and kind of hover around the outskirts of the hot spots and just be careful about my engagements and try to observe my surroundings, and then use my environment. And that's tip number 2. When you're a solo, your best friend is going to be the environment. This Giga was actually doing a pretty good job using his environment, but the Acro has a charge, so I was able to charge him right off that rock and counter his environmental advantage there. But again, that was a decent fight. That was a sub-adult DB Giga, but that's 2 tiers above my build, so I think that's a pretty fair fight. And I do try to pick those types of fights when I'm solo. There's kind of like 2 ways to play. Like if I play in a pack, you just run around and kill everything. You usually have an advantage. You're going to encounter stuff that, like solo players, you always, when you're in a pack, you always see like the easy targets. There's a solo person somewhere. There's, something easy to kill, and you go and run and kill it, and you just rinse and repeat that process. And a lot of players do that. If I'm in a pack and that's what they're doing, I'll go along with it sometimes, but it's not the most fun for me. I usually do like to try to pick the more challenging things. Like in this case, I thought, two Karks is a pretty good fight for 3 DB Acros. That should be a pretty equal fight. So I try to find and stick to fights like that. Although, obviously, occasionally we will pick off the easy prey from time to time. And it could be unfair sometimes, but at the same time, if you're in the hot spot and you're solo in a hot spot, then you're probably a player that does want to fight those overwhelming odds. And there are some players out there like DREAD and George, the owner of the server, that are very good and can actually win those fights, and I've seen them win those fights. But that's an exception to the rule. Those guys are like the best of the best, and so I like watching them fight. I actually have a clip of them at the end of this video where they fight each other. It's a great fight. So you can see an example of 2 very good fighters going at it. But yeah, so if there is a solo player just wandering around in a hot spot like that, it's not. I don't feel so bad fighting them all the time, because that's the choice that they made. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna go as a solo like this Rex right here into a major hot spot like Savannah, like right now on Apex Killer, Savannah is a huge hot spot. You have to know you're going to face some overwhelming odds. So in this case, it's like I don't feel bad, but if you're out and about and you run into a juvenile or something like that, then I do feel bad sometimes when I kill them. But if I'm hungry, you got to do it. But I try to avoid it, and I try to stick to more challenging fights when I can. But you can see, like I said, using your environment is a huge one. This Rex is doing that here, and that's the best thing they can do, is use the environment. I don't have any problems with that. I get into a lot of fights as a solo player, and I immediately use the environment, and I get a lot of hate for that, and I get a lot of complaints about that. But my goal when I'm playing solo is to survive. So yeah, I'm gonna go to the environment that is gonna best suit my chances for survival. And so I recommend everybody do that. I mean, to me that's the point, right? And if the players that you're fighting against don't like that, they don't have to fight you, number 1. And number 2, they're probably just trying to intimidate you and to make you feel, to bully you, so to speak, into leaving your advantage, your environmental advantage. So I would say don't give into that. That's another tip for solo players. Don't give into the peer pressure. Don't give into the people that are like, oh, you're a sissy, or you're a this, or you're a that. They start name calling you because you're using the water or you're using a cliff or whatever. If they're telling you that, then you're doing the right thing. you're in the exact right spot that you should be, because it's making it very difficult for them, enough to where they're even complaining about it in chat, and they're trying to manipulate you and get you to change what you're doing. So I would say that that's a signal that you're doing the right thing. So that's another tip for you there, solo players that want to survive. I think it would be really dumb not to use your environment. I think, you see the Rex players that just run out into the middle of Savannah and they're facing a 3 DB Acros. Well, they're just going to get tail ridden and killed. Especially if you have charge bite on like this guy. It's going to be very hard to land that. So those are all my tips, and basically, be smart, use your environment, be smart about your engagements, don't run headlong into battle, observe your surroundings, stick to the, not the most remote parts of the map, but, also not into the middle of the hot spots, and, don't give in to the complaints and the peer pressure when you're fighting. Do what you know is the smart thing for your survival. And I think that should help your chances. So I hope that helps. The DB Acro is a great choice as a solo playable. It's got a lot of tools that you can use for a lot of different situations. I think the setup that I have here is probably the best for solo play. And the last thing is watch really good fighters. Like at the end of this video right here, this clip coming up is George, the owner, and this player called DREAD that I've seen on many different servers, and he's up there with the best I've ever seen. Both George and him are the best I've ever seen. Among the best, there's a handful of others, but these two are top notch. And so I threw this fight in here for everybody to watch. This is a great example here of two of the best fighters fighting a mirror match with the DB Acros. George is the purple and orange one, and DREAD is the orange and light blue. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some tips out of this, and please leave some comments below. Let me know if you've learned anything, or if you have some more tips. I definitely would love to see those as well. And thanks for watching, and I hope to see you out there in Gondua. Goodbye.